The vacuum of space stretched like an endless obsidian canvas, punctuated by the soft hum of the Tselnaga observation ship's quantum drives. Captain Zorak adjusted the neural interface that connected his consciousness to the vessel's sensory array, his multiple appendages moving with the practiced ease of a veteran explorer. Another routine planetary survey awaited, or so he believed. Beneath the ship's advanced camouflage field, the vessel glided past the outer markers of the Sol system, its sensors prodding the darkness. Zorak's species had cataloged thousands of developing civilizations, each following a predictable pattern of technological and cultural evolution. Humans would be no different, he assumed. Just another primitive species trapped on their home world, struggling with basic technological challenges. The ship's primary observation console flickered to life, displaying initial scans of the third planet. Blue and green, wrapped in swirling white clouds, a typical oxygen-based ecosystem. Standard preliminary reports suggested a species barely capable of leaving their own atmosphere. Zorak's junior researcher, Melina, began compiling the standard sinological assessment. Initial atmospheric composition confirms carbon-based life, Melina reported, her translation tendrils moving in precise synchronization with the ship's communication systems. Technological development appears consistent with early-stage interplanetary exploration. No signs of significant space infrastructure. What neither Melina nor Zorak realized was that humanity had already detected their presence. In a nondescript mission control center beneath Houston, Texas, a team of specialists worked with calculated precision. Michael Roberts, head of the Advanced Space Reconnaissance Unit, leaned forward, his weathered hands moving across a holographic display that looked deceptively simple but concealed layers of technological complexity few alien species could comprehend. Target acquired, he muttered, more to himself than to the dozen specialists surrounding him. Each team member wore standard gray uniforms that betrayed nothing of the extraordinary operation unfolding before them. Sarah Henderson, the unit's quantum communication specialist, was already implementing a series of protocols designed specifically for unexpected extraterrestrial encounters. Her fingers danced across quantum encryption modules that would make the incoming alien scans see exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Establishing controlled information gradient, she announced. The phrase sounded clinical, but its implications were profound. They weren't just hiding. They were actively manipulating the perception of an alien species that believed itself to be undetectable. The quantum communication array began broadcasting a carefully constructed signal. To the Tselnaga sensors, it would appear to be nothing more than standard planetary electromagnetic noise. Radio signals, satellite communications, the typical technological chatter of a developing civilization. Each signal was meticulously crafted, containing just enough complexity to suggest technological progress, but not enough to trigger advanced threat assessments. Back on the observation ship, Zorak noticed a slight anomaly in the data stream, a momentary fluctuation that most would have dismissed as sensor interference. But Zorak had spent centuries mapping developing civilizations. Something felt different. Melina, run a Level 3 quantum coherence scan on the third planet's communication bands, he instructed, a hint of professional curiosity entering his normally detached tone. Melina complied, her multispectral scanners probing deeper into the planet's communication networks. What she found was both mundane and extraordinary. The signals appeared primitive, yet they contained subtle mathematical patterns that defied simple categorization. In Houston, Michael Roberts allowed himself the slightest of smiles. The first stage of their plan was working perfectly. Humanity had long anticipated this moment, not with fear, but with a calculated preparedness that bordered on predatory anticipation. Every signal, every scan, every potential point of alien contact had been wargamed, analyzed, and prepared for with a level of strategic depth that would make military planners from previous human generations weep with pride. The Tselnaga believed they were observing. In reality, they were being observed, carefully, methodically, and with a level of strategic intelligence they could not yet comprehend. First contact had begun, and humanity was most definitely not going to be the prey. The holographic display in the Tselnaga research complex flickered with images that defied the researchers' understanding. Researcher Krillax adjusted his neural filters, trying to process the horrific narrative of human history unfolding before his multifaceted eyes. What humans called prehistory was a nightmare of survival that made even the most hardened Tselnaga researchers recoil. The archaeological records were not a gentle progression of civilization, but a brutal chronicle of systematic elimination. Dr. Jessica Palmer's recovered research logs became a primary source of fascination and terror. Her dissertation on human evolutionary history was nothing short of a comprehensive manual of species extinction. Each page detailed how humans had systematically removed competing species, reshaped entire ecosystems, and dominated their planet through a combination of intelligence, adaptability, and ruthless efficiency. The first breakthrough came with the Neanderthal records. Genetic analysis showed that humans hadn't simply coexisted with their evolutionary cousins, they had completely absorbed or eliminated them. Modern human DNA carried traces of Neanderthal genetic material, but not through peaceful integration. It was the result of a complex process of competition, conflict, and eventual genetic assimilation. They didn't just survive alongside other species, Krillax muttered to his research assistant, Vornax. They actively eliminated anything that could potentially compete with them. The mammoth extinction provided another chilling example. Humans had hunted these massive creatures to complete extinction, not out of necessity, but with a calculated approach that suggested something far more disturbing than simple survival. Archaeological evidence showed humans had developed increasingly sophisticated hunting techniques, creating complex tools specifically designed to take down creatures many times their size. But it wasn't just large mammals. Humans had systematically reshaped entire ecosystems. The extinction of numerous plant and animal species wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate process of environmental management. They viewed the natural world not as a delicate balance to be preserved, but as a resource to be controlled and modified. Vornax pulled up additional historical records, each more disturbing than the last. The transformation of North American prairies, the elimination of apex predators, the complete restructuring of entire continental ecosystems, all achieved with a level of strategic planning that suggested something far beyond simple survival. "Look at this," Vornax said, highlighting a series of archaeological findings. They didn't just adapt to their environment. They fundamentally redesigned it to suit their needs. The research team discovered something even more terrifying. Humans didn't view their environmental modifications as destruction. They saw them as improvement. Species elimination wasn't murder, it was optimization. Entire ecosystems were treated like engineering projects, with humans as the architects and every other living thing as a potential resource or obstacle. Jessica Palmer's most chilling observation came from her field notes. Humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage is not intelligence, but the ability to transform any challenge into an opportunity for expansion. The Tselnaga researchers began to understand that human history was not a story of civilization. It was a story of calculated conquest, first of their own planet, then inevitably of everything beyond. Agricultural records showed the same pattern. Humans didn't just develop farming, they weaponized it. They transformed plants and animals through selective breeding, creating entirely new species that served human needs. Corn, wheat, domesticated animals. Each was a testament to their ability to reshape life itself to their advantage. Vornax pulled up comparative charts showing human technological progression. Unlike other species that Tselnaga had encountered, humans didn't develop technology linearly. They leaped, adapted, transformed. A tool for hunting became a tool for war. A communication method became a method of psychological manipulation. They don't create technology to solve problems, Krillax realized. They create technology to eliminate limitations. The most terrifying revelation came from human medical records. Not content with reshaping their external world, humans had begun to modify themselves. Genetic research, neural interfaces, biological augmentation. They were turning evolution into an active, deliberate process. As the research team compiled their findings, a collective sense of dread settled over the Selnaga complex. This was not a civilization they were studying. This was a predatory system, a species that viewed the entire universe as a problem to be solved, a challenge to be conquered. Humanity was not just another species waiting to be cataloged. They were something else entirely, a force of nature disguised as a civilization, waiting to be unleashed. The genetic research wing of the Selnaga Scientific Complex hummed with an unusual tension. Dr. William Thompson sat strapped to an examination chair, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the advanced scanning equipment surrounding him. The human had been captured during an early reconnaissance mission, and now he was about to become the most important biological specimen in galactic history. Lead geneticist Zornak adjusted his multispectral analysis tools, his tentacle-like appendages moving with practiced precision. What began as a routine xenobiological examination was quickly becoming something far more terrifying. Begin primary genetic sequencing, Zornak instructed his team. The first layer of scans revealed anomalies that defied everything that Selnaga understood about biological adaptation. Human DNA wasn't just a genetic code. It was a living, dynamic system that seemed to actively resist categorization. Where other species had relatively stable genetic structures, human DNA demonstrated an unprecedented level of plasticity. William Thompson watched their growing confusion with a slight smile. Surprised? He asked, his voice calm and almost conversational. The human body before them was a perfect example of evolutionary warfare. Scars across Thompson's body told a story of survival that went beyond mere medical healing. Each wound appeared to have triggered a complex biological response that went far beyond standard cellular regeneration. Zornak's secondary analysis revealed the first true shock. Thompson's immune system wasn't just defensive, it was actively aggressive. Normal biological defense mechanisms worked by identifying and neutralizing threats. This human's immune response seemed to learn, adapt, and prepare for future invasions with a level of intelligence that bordered on sentience. Our species has been fighting biological threats for thousands of years, Thompson explained. Every pandemic, every environmental challenge. We don't just survive. We evolve. The genetic scanners picked up something even more extraordinary. Thompson's body showed signs of multiple genetic modifications, not through advanced technological intervention, but through generations of brutal natural selection. His cellular structure contained markers of adaptations that had occurred over mere decades, not millions of years. Vornax, a junior researcher, began compiling the findings. Humans could survive temperature ranges that would kill most known species. Their metabolic systems could adapt to extreme nutritional conditions. Their neural plasticity allowed for learning and adaptation at a rate that made other species look static by comparison. Look at this, Vornax whispered, pulling up a comparative holographic display. Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They fundamentally redesign their own biological potential in response to challenges. The research team discovered something truly terrifying. Human reproductive biology was itself a weapon of survival. Their genetic diversity, population growth rates, and ability to thrive in multiple environmental conditions suggested a species designed for expansion. Thompson watched their growing horror with a detached scientific interest. Evolution isn't a slow process for us, he explained. It's an active strategy. Further analysis revealed that human genetic variation was exponentially more complex than any known species. Where most civilizations had relatively predictable genetic lineages, humans showed a chaotic diversity that suggested constant, aggressive adaptation. The medical records they had recovered painted an even more disturbing picture. Humans had begun to understand and manipulate their own genetic code. What they called medical research was actually a sophisticated form of self-directed evolution. Cancer treatments, genetic therapies, neural regeneration. Each advancement was another tool in their biological arsenal. Zornik realized they were looking at something unprecedented. Humans weren't just a species. They were a living, breathing algorithm of survival. Our previous assessments were completely wrong, Zornak announced to his team. Humans are not a developing civilization. They are a biological optimization system. Thompson's final statement would haunt the research team. We don't just survive in our environment. We become whatever our environment requires us to become. The genetic scans continued, each new revelation more terrifying than the last. Humans had transformed their own biology into a weapon of universal adaptation. They didn't just live in environments. They conquered them at a cellular level. As the research concluded, one thing became horrifyingly clear. Humanity was not just a species. They were a force of biological innovation that could potentially rewrite the fundamental understanding of life itself. The holographic display in the Tselnaga Technology Assessment Chamber flickered with a complex web of human technological developments. Sarah Rodriguez stood at the center of the examination, her hands bound but her eyes blazing with an intensity that made the alien researchers deeply uncomfortable. Dr. Krillax moved carefully around the display, each new revelation more disturbing than the last. Human technological progression was not a linear path of development. It was a predatory algorithm of innovation. The wheel, one of humanity's earliest innovations, perfectly encapsulated their approach. What began as a simple method of transportation quickly became a weapon of unprecedented mobility. Chariots, wagons, eventually vehicles and aircraft. Each iteration was not just an improvement, but a method of expanding human capability and dominance. Every human invention is a multi-purpose survival tool, Sarah explained, her voice clinical and detached. We don't create technology to solve problems. We create technology to eliminate limitations. The fire discovery told a similar story. What other species saw as a simple heat source, humans transformed into a comprehensive environmental control mechanism. Cooking, metallurgy, industrial processing, warfare, fire became a universal tool of transformation. Krillax watched as the display showed the progression of human communication technologies. The Internet was not just a communication network. It was a global nervous system that allowed instantaneous information transfer, psychological manipulation, and economic warfare. Look at how quickly they adapted, Vornax muttered, pulling up comparative charts. Where other species take centuries to develop global communication, humans did it in mere decades. Each technological leap demonstrated the same pattern. Agriculture wasn't just about food production. It was a method of environmental control. Metallurgy wasn't simply about creating tools. It was about reshaping the physical world to human specifications. The medical technologies were particularly terrifying. Humans didn't just treat diseases. They actively worked to understand and manipulate biological systems. Genetic research, neural interfaces, prosthetic technologies. Each advancement blurred the line between biological limitation and technological possibility. Sarah Rodriguez continued her explanation, seemingly oblivious to her captive status. Technology is our species' primary evolutionary mechanism, she said. Where biological evolution is slow, technological evolution is instantaneous. Military technology revealed the most disturbing aspect of human innovation. Each weapon was not just a tool of destruction, but a complex problem-solving mechanism. Nuclear technology, initially a weapon of unprecedented devastation, quickly became a source of energy. Satellite systems designed for military reconnaissance became global communication networks. The Tselnaga researchers discovered something even more shocking. Humans viewed technological failure not as a setback, but as a learning opportunity. Their scientific method was essentially a continuous optimization algorithm. Failed experiments were not discarded. They were analyzed, understood, and integrated into future developments. Artificial intelligence research demonstrated this approach perfectly. Where other species feared autonomous systems, humans saw them as another tool of expansion. Each technological limitation was treated as a challenge to be overcome, not an insurmountable barrier. They don't just create technology, Krillax realized. They weaponized the concept of innovation itself. The display showed how quickly humans adapted technological concepts across different domains. A communication technology could become a medical breakthrough. A military research project could revolutionize agricultural production. Their technological ecosystems were not compartmentalized. They were deeply interconnected networks of constant innovation. Space exploration technologies were particularly revealing. Humans didn't just develop rocket technology. They transformed every component into a multi-purpose survival mechanism. Communication satellites, GPS systems, weather monitoring. Each technology served multiple complex purposes simultaneously. Sarah's final statement would haunt the research team. Technology is not our tool. We are technology's ultimate expression. The most terrifying realization came from their comparative analysis. Most species develop technology to solve specific problems. Humans develop technology as a method of total environmental and biological transformation. As the examination concluded, the Selnaga researchers understood a fundamental truth. Humanity's technology was not a collection of tools. It was a living, adaptive system of universal conquest, a method of turning limitations into opportunities with terrifying efficiency. The classified training manual lay spread across the holographic display, each page a testament to humanity's most sophisticated weapon. The ability to wage war beyond physical boundaries. Colonel James Henderson sat motionless, his steely gaze cutting through the alien researchers like a precision instrument. Researcher Krulax felt an unfamiliar sensation that his species had no word for, a mix of terror and grudging respect. The document before them was not just a military manual. It was a comprehensive blueprint for total psychological domination. Human communication was not about information exchange. It was a weapon system. The first section detailed what humans called information warfare, a concept so complex that it took the Selnaga researchers weeks to begin understanding its nuances. Propaganda was not simply about spreading messages. It was a multi-layered strategy of perception manipulation that could destabilize entire civilizations without firing a single weapon. Information is not just power, Henderson explained coldly. Information is a living organism that can be cultivated, modified, and weaponized. Historical records showed how humans had systematically broken down complex social structures through carefully crafted communication strategies. They didn't just communicate, they constructed narrative ecosystems that could reshape entire cultural paradigms. The linguistic analysis was particularly terrifying. Human languages were not just communication tools. They were adaptive systems that could rapidly evolve to include new concepts, absorb other linguistic structures, and create entirely new modes of communication. Vornax pulled up comparative linguistic charts that demonstrated something unprecedented. Where most species had relatively stable communication systems, human languages changed at an exponential rate. Words were not just symbols. They were malleable weapons of psychological construction. Social media research revealed an even more disturbing pattern. What appeared to be simple communication platforms were actually sophisticated psychological warfare mechanisms. Each post, each shared piece of information, was a calculated move in a global game of mental manipulation. "We don't just communicate," Henderson said, a hint of pride in his voice. "We construct reality." The training manual revealed multiple layers of psychological operation strategies. Disinformation was not about spreading lies. It was about creating complex narrative ecosystems that could fundamentally alter perception. A single, carefully crafted message could destabilize entire social structures. Cultural adaptation was another weapon of unprecedented sophistication. Humans didn't just understand other cultures. They could instantaneously deconstruct and reintegrate cultural systems, transforming them from within. Intelligence gathering methods showed a level of complexity that defied traditional understanding. Humans didn't just collect information. They created entire ecosystems of data collection that could predict and manipulate behavioral patterns. Psychological warfare is not about defeating an enemy, the manual stated in one chilling passage. It's about controlling the very framework of their perception. The researchers discovered something even more terrifying. Humans had developed psychological manipulation techniques that worked across multiple levels of communication. A single message could simultaneously operate on emotional, intellectual, and subconscious levels. Media analysis demonstrated how humans could simultaneously maintain multiple contradictory narratives, using them as tools of strategic communication. A news story could be simultaneously true, false, and irrelevant, depending on the required psychological outcome. Henderson's final explanation cut to the core of human communication strategy. We don't just send messages. We construct entire realities that people choose to inhabit. Diplomatic communication records showed an even more sophisticated approach. Humans could simultaneously negotiate, threaten, collaborate, and manipulate, often within the same conversation. Their communication was not linear but multidimensional. The most shocking revelation came from their understanding of emotional manipulation. Humans had developed communication strategies that could trigger specific emotional responses with surgical precision. They didn't just communicate, they could literally restructure psychological landscapes. As the examination concluded, the Xel'Naga researchers understood a fundamental truth. Human communication was not a method of information exchange. It was a living, adaptive weapon system capable of conquering minds without ever firing a physical weapon. Humanity had transformed communication into the most sophisticated form of warfare imaginable, a method of total psychological conquest that operated beyond traditional understanding of conflict. The holographic display of Earth's geological history flickered with a terrifying precision that made the Xel'Naga researchers recoil. Emily Carter stood before them, her eyes reflecting a cold, analytical understanding of planetary transformation that defied everything they knew about ecological management. "We don't live on planets," she said quietly. "We redesign them." The geological records told a story of systematic environmental reconstruction that was less about preservation and more about total planetary engineering. Humans had not just adapted to their environment. They had actively reshaped entire continental structures, ocean currents, and atmospheric compositions. Researcher Krillax watched in horror as the display showed the transformation of North American landscapes. Vast prairies that once supported complex ecological systems had been systematically converted into agricultural networks. Entire species had been eliminated, not through malice, but through a calculated approach to resource optimization. The Amazon rainforest research was particularly revealing. Humans hadn't just developed conservation strategies, they had begun developing technologies to actively rebuild and redesign entire ecological systems. Genetic preservation, species reintroduction, climate manipulation. Each approach was a surgical intervention into planetary systems. "Look at how they approach ecological management," Vornax muttered, pulling up comparative charts. "Where other species adapt to their environment, humans treat the entire planet as a programmable system." Climate change research demonstrated an even more terrifying level of planetary understanding. Humans didn't just recognize global environmental shifts, they had begun developing comprehensive strategies to actively modify planetary conditions. What appeared to be environmental destruction was actually a complex process of planetary redesign. Emily Carter's explanation cut to the core of human environmental philosophy. Sustainability is not about preservation. It's about continuous optimization. The researchers discovered something unprecedented. Humans were developing technologies that could fundamentally alter planetary ecosystems. Genetic engineering of plant species, atmospheric carbon capture technologies, oceanic ecosystem reconstruction. Each approach treated the planet as a complex system to be managed and improved. Mining and resource extraction showed a similar pattern of total system manipulation. Humans didn't just extract resources, they developed increasingly sophisticated methods of environmental restoration and reconstruction. Every ecological intervention was simultaneously a method of resource acquisition and planetary management. Ocean restoration projects revealed a particularly sophisticated approach. Humans were developing technologies to rebuild marine ecosystems, reintroduce extinct species, and fundamentally restructure underwater environments. What other species would see as impossible, humans treated as an engineering challenge. "We don't just live on planets," Carter explained. "We turn them into complex, adaptive systems that serve our needs." Agricultural technologies demonstrated an even more terrifying level of environmental control. Genetic modification of crops, vertical farming, desert reclamation. Each approach showed a species that viewed environmental limitations as challenges to be overcome. The most shocking revelation came from their space exploration research. Humans weren't just exploring other planets, they were already developing comprehensive strategies for planetary transformation. Mars colonization plans showed a level of environmental engineering that bordered on planetary reconstruction. Vornax highlighted a particularly disturbing research document. Humans were developing technologies to potentially terraform entire planetary systems, turning inhospitable environments into habitable zones. What other species would see as science fiction, humans treated as a practical engineering challenge. "Every environmental challenge is an opportunity for redesign," Carter said, her voice carrying a chilling certainty. The geological records showed how humans had already begun to modify their own planet systems. Oceanic current redirections, atmospheric carbon management, species reintroduction. Each intervention was a surgical modification of planetary systems. As the examination concluded, the Selnaga researchers understood a fundamental truth. Humanity did not view planets as fixed environments to be preserved. They saw planetary systems as complex, programmable networks that could be continuously optimized and redesigned. Humanity was not just a species that lived on planets, they were planetary architects, capable of transforming entire ecosystems with a level of precision and vision that defied traditional understanding of ecological management. The diplomatic chamber hummed with an electric tension that defied conventional understanding of interspecies communication. Robert Allen stood at the center, his posture a perfect blend of calculated calm and barely contained predatory potential. The Selnaga delegation watched him with a mixture of fascination and terror. Their initial communication protocols had been meticulously prepared over decades. Humans had not just anticipated first contact, they had engineered every possible scenario with a level of strategic depth that made traditional diplomatic approaches look like children's games. "We don't make first contact," Allen explained, his voice carrying a clinical precision. "We prepare comprehensive engagement strategies." The communication logs revealed a terrifying level of preparation. Linguistic algorithms had been developed to not just translate alien languages, but to analyze communication patterns, identify psychological vulnerabilities, and construct multi-layered response strategies. Researcher Krillax examined the preliminary communication protocols. Each potential alien interaction scenario had been wargamed with a level of complexity that suggested humans viewed first contact as a form of advanced strategic warfare. The preliminary communication database was a masterpiece of strategic engineering humans had developed. Comprehensive linguistic decryption algorithms, psychological profile generation systems, multi-dimensional communication strategy frameworks, biological and technological containment protocols, adaptive response mechanisms for various alien encounter scenarios. "Notice how they approach communication," Vornax muttered, pulling up comparative analysis charts. "Where most species prepare for peaceful exchange, humans prepare for total strategic engagement." The most shocking revelation was the Contingency Omega Protocol, a comprehensive first contact strategy that treated alien interaction as a potential existential threat. Every possible communication scenario had been analyzed, categorized, and prepared for with surgical precision. Robert Allen's explanation cut to the core of human strategic thinking. First contact is not a moment of peaceful exchange. It's the most critical strategic operation in our species' history. Communication technologies demonstrated an unprecedented level of adaptive capability. Humans had developed systems that could instantaneously analyze alien communication patterns, generate real-time linguistic and psychological response strategies, create multi-layered communication interfaces, develop comprehensive threat assessment protocols. The diplomatic preparation went far beyond communication. Humans had developed biological containment strategies, technological isolation protocols, comprehensive economic engagement frameworks, multi-dimensional threat assessment systems. We don't wait to understand, Allen continued. We prepare to control every possible interaction vector. Technological quarantine protocols revealed an even more sophisticated approach. Humans had developed comprehensive systems to isolate potential alien technologies, analyze communication frequencies, develop adaptive defensive mechanisms, create comprehensive technological barrier systems. The most terrifying aspect was the psychological preparation. Humans had developed communication strategies that could identify psychological vulnerabilities, generate adaptive communication responses, manipulate perception at multiple levels, create comprehensive narrative control mechanisms. Vornax highlighted a particularly disturbing document humans had already developed: potential alien interaction psychological profiles, communication manipulation strategies, comprehensive cultural integration algorithms, technological adaptation frameworks. Every potential alien interaction is treated as a complex strategic operation, Allen explained. We don't just prepare to communicate. We prepare to control the entire interaction framework. The communication logs showed a species that viewed first contact not as a moment of peaceful exchange, but as the most critical strategic operation in their evolutionary history. Each potential interaction was a carefully engineered scenario designed to protect human interests, gather comprehensive intelligence, maintain total strategic advantage, prepare for potential conflict. As the examination concluded, the Xel'Naga researchers understood a fundamental truth. Humanity's approach to first contact was not about peaceful communication. It was a comprehensive, multidimensional strategic operation designed to achieve total information and strategic superiority. Humanity had transformed the concept of first contact into the most sophisticated form of strategic engagement imaginable, a method of total control that operated beyond traditional understanding of diplomatic interaction. The final report assembled in the Xel'Naga High Council chamber was not a document. It was a death sentence for entire civilizations. Grand Researcher Krulax stood before the holographic display, his multiple appendages moving with a trembling precision that betrayed the magnitude of their discovery. Humanity was not just another species. They were an existential algorithm designed to consume, adapt, and overcome. We are facing a fundamental miscalculation, Krulax began, his voice resonating through the chamber. Humanity is not a civilization. They are a force of universal conquest. The comprehensive analysis revealed a terrifying pattern. Every aspect of human existence was a sophisticated survival mechanism. Their biological structure, technological development, communication strategies, and environmental manipulation were not separate systems. They were interconnected networks of continuous optimization. Vornax pulled up the comparative galactic civilization charts. Dozens of advanced species had encountered humanity. None remained intact. Some had been absorbed. Others had simply vanished. The pattern was unmistakable. The genetic research showed humans were not bound by traditional evolutionary constraints. They viewed their own biology as a programmable system. Genetic modification, neural interfaces, technological augmentation, each advancement blurred the line between biological limitation and technological potential. They don't just adapt, Krulax explained. They actively redesign themselves as a survival strategy. Technological progression demonstrated an even more disturbing trend. Where most species develop technology to solve specific problems, humans develop technology as a method of total environmental and biological transformation. Each innovation was not just a tool, it was a weapon of universal expansion. The communication analysis revealed a species that could construct and manipulate reality itself. Psychological warfare was not just a strategy. It was their primary method of interaction. They could destabilize entire civilizations without firing a single weapon. Planetary engineering research showed they didn't just inhabit worlds, they transformed them. Entire ecosystems were treated as complex, programmable networks to be continuously optimized and redesigned. The most chilling calculation was simple. Humanity would either become the galaxy's next dominant species or would be destroyed in the attempt. And based on everything they had learned, destruction was no longer a certainty. Strategic projections showed multiple potential conquest scenarios: biological assimilation, technological infiltration, psychological manipulation, direct military expansion, environmental redesign, and colonization. Each scenario demonstrated a level of strategic complexity that defied traditional understanding of species interaction. "We are not dealing with a civilization," Vornax muttered. "We are dealing with a living, adaptive conquest system." The first contact protocols had been a carefully laid trap. Humanity's preparation was not about peaceful interaction. It was about total strategic control. Every communication, every technological exchange, every biological interaction was a potential vector for expansion. The final recommendation was brutal in its simplicity. There were only 3 potential responses: total and immediate extermination, complete isolation, submission, and potential assimilation. None of these options guaranteed safety. Krillex's final statement would echo through the High Council chambers. Humanity is not a species to be studied. They are a universal constant that must be survived. The galactic threat assessment was clear. Humans were not just another civilization. They were a force of nature, a self-optimizing system of conquest that viewed the entire universe as a problem to be solved. Their biological structure, technological capabilities, communication strategies, and environmental manipulation were not separate systems. They were an interconnected network of continuous expansion. As the report concluded, the Xel'Naga researchers understood a fundamental truth. Humanity was not just a threat. They were a fundamental redesign of the concept of life itself, a species that did not just survive, but actively transformed the very nature of existence. The universe had discovered its most dangerous inhabitants, and humanity was just getting started.